From Ferrari having to give 50,000 euros for fuel irregularities to McLaren's $100,000 fine for their espionage scandal. Here are the most ridiculous fines in F1 history. But first, how easy is it to get fined in F1 racing? Honestly, F1 racing is like playing a high-stakes game of Simon Says, except the stakes are way higher and you're racing around a track at insane speeds. The F1 rulebook is thicker than a phone book, and if you're not careful, you'll end up getting fined before you know it. There are all sorts of rules, like don't speed in the pit lane, don't cause a collision, don't ignore yellow flags, and the list goes on and on. And if you do break one of those rules, you better have your wallet ready, because fines can range from a few thousand to tens of thousands of dollars. So, let's start off with the first ridiculous fine. I'm talking about the time Red Bull was fined 31,000 euros. Mark Webber's time at Red Bull in F1 racing was like a roller coaster ride with some serious highs and lows. Red Bull was on fire during their most competitive streak from 2010 to 2013, winning 4 straight championships, with Sebastian Vettel taking home all 4 drivers' titles. But behind the scenes, there was some serious tension brewing. Fast forward to the 2013 German GP, and we have Lewis Hamilton in the pole position, with Vettel and Webber not too far behind. Webber's off to a great start and even takes the lead on lap 7. But then disaster struck during a routine pit stop on lap 8. The Red Bull mechanics fumble with the rear right wheel and it rolls away as Webber accelerates out of the pits. And it doesn't stop there. The rogue wheel ends up hitting an F1 cameraman named Paul Allen, who was minding his own business, facing the opposite side. Yikes. The scene turns into a frenzy, with mechanics and FIA personnel rushing to help Allen, who is unconscious. He gets taken to the Nürburgring Circuit's medical center. Meanwhile, poor Webber gets rolled back to the garage and is allowed to rejoin the race at the back of the pack. Afterwards, Red Bull got hit with a massive $31,000 fine for their negligence in letting Webber's car leave the pits without the wheel properly attached. But if you thought this fine was crazy, wait till you hear about this next one. I'm talking about the time Ferrari was fined 50,000 euros back in 2018. Ferrari got slapped with a hefty 50,000 euro fine after one of their mechanics got hit by Kimi Räikkönen's car during a pit stop at the Bahrain Grand Prix. The poor mechanic, Francesco, ended up with a broken leg due to the mishap, and Räikkönen, who was in third place at the time, was told to stop immediately, while his teammate, Sebastian Vettel, went on to win. I go when the light is green. I don't see what happened behind, and unfortunately, he got hurt, said Räikkönen, the 2007 world champion, after the incident. He was left sitting in his car for a while before stepping out while the mechanics focused on their stricken teammate on the floor. Räikkönen was clearly shaken up by the accident, but he did his best to maintain a brave face. Ferrari's chairman, Sergio Marchionne, also weighed in, wishing the mechanic a speedy recovery in his post-race statement. "I'm sorry for Kimi, who could certainly have finished on the podium," he added. However, it was the second time Ferrari had been penalized for an unsafe release over the Bahrain Grand Prix weekend. They were fined 5,000 euros after Räikkönen was sent out of the pits with a loose wheel in a previous practice. Race stewards said that in the incident, the car was released in a manner endangering team personnel and causing injury. Overall, it was a pretty rough weekend for Ferrari, but 50,000 euros is nothing compared to this next fine. Let's talk about when Racing Point was fined 400,000 euros at the Hungarian Grand Prix. Apparently their car, nicknamed the Pink Mercedes, was causing some controversy back in 2020, mostly because of the design of the brake ducts. Renault had been protesting about it for the past 3 races before the fine, so the FIA decided to get involved and seize the brake ducts after the first protest at the Styrian Grand Prix. And after investigating the matter, the FIA decided to uphold the protests, citing a breach of the sporting regulations. As a result, Racing Point had 15 championship points deducted and a hefty fine of 400,000 euros imposed. Ouch! The good part was that the penalty only applied to the team standings and not the drivers themselves, so the drivers got off the hook. So, why was the design considered illegal, you ask? Well, it wasn't so much that the car was illegal under the technical regulations, but rather the way the brake ducts were designed. The stewards determined that Racing Point had used designs from Mercedes to copy the W10's design, which was a major no-no. The year before that, Racing Point had legally bought the designs from Mercedes and ran front brake ducts based on the world champion's design on its 2019 car. But then, in 2020, the team decided to ditch its previous aerodynamic philosophy and copy Mercedes' low-rake design, which meant that it had to change the rear brake ducts to versions based on Mercedes' 2019 rear brake ducts, because of a change in the sporting regulations over the winter that prohibited the sharing of brake duct designs for 2020. This created a bit of an issue. As a result, the stewards decided to impose the penalties mentioned earlier, both sporting and financial. But they didn't feel it was necessary to disqualify Racing Point from the results. Whew. But they're not the only ones who have faced the wrath of the FIA. Sauber had their own pit stop catastrophe at the British Grand Prix in 2012. Okay, so Sauber got a not-so-fun surprise back in 2012 when they were hit with a €20,000 fine for a pit stop fiasco at the British Grand Prix. It was like a bumper car extravaganza as Kamui Kobayashi collided with Pastor Maldonado's Williams while trying to make his grand exit, right when the poor Venezuelan was coming in for his pit stop. Talk about bad timing, but that's not all. Kamui's eventful day didn't stop there. He also had a little tussle with Michael Schumacher's Mercedes during the race. It's like he couldn't catch a break. To add to the pit stop pandemonium, McLaren got into their fair share of trouble too. They were slapped with a €5,000 fine for a major oopsie. Jenson Button, the British racing sensation, left the pits with a front wheel that wasn't properly secured. Can you imagine the look on Jenson's face when he had to pull over right at the exit? It must have been a facepalm moment for the mechanics. Now, as insane as all of these fines have been, let's talk about the largest fine in F1 history. I'm talking about the $100 million McLaren had to dish out for their involvement in the espionage scandal with Ferrari. McLaren Mercedes, the big dogs of Formula One, got hit with a massive fine of $100 million back in 2007. Apparently, they got caught cheating by using data they swiped from Ferrari to make their own car better. Super shady move, if you ask me. The International Automobile Federation, the main ones in charge, found them guilty and took away all their constructors' points for the 2007 FIA Formula One World Championship. Dang, that's harsh. But get this. The team was still allowed to race, and their star drivers, Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso, still got to keep their points and were still eligible to win the driver's title. Crazy, right? Now, this is the single biggest punishment a team has ever gotten in the sport's history. And just to rub salt in the wound, they weren't allowed to get any of the sport's income this season either. Ouch. And that's all for the most ridiculous fines in F1 history.